Kevin and Andy and maybe one or two other people that do the overnight thing anyway. So hopefully it won't be too big of an issue. And if nothing else, they can, both of them are Dallas Club members as well, so they could just go the 3 miles east and spend overnight with the dark group, and then come back for the Mars group in the morning when they allow us to open back up again.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Well, plus they have the mobile command post, so that would be awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. So we'll set up Cert City, and maybe we'll have a first aid tent out there, because we're not official EMTs. We're still just wannabes. But we can treat some minor boo-boos and overheated people. We'll have to bring a cooler of ice. I guess bring some water and some liquid IV drink. It's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. KI5GRH. Oh, it's so fun seeing you and everybody out at the Hamfest. That was a lot of fun. Okay, well, I'm at home now, so I'm going to go inside and I'll get on my other radio. So, N5IMS, KI5GRH. Oh, well, and Skynet's going to start here in a minute, so I'll see you in a few minutes. KI5GRH, going inside.
All right, well, you take care, and I'm trying to do all the paperwork and stuff from all the sales we had, so hopefully I can get all that stuff done. I really would like to have the money all taken care of so I can have it all bundled up and know when I'm supposed to deposit, what I'm supposed to keep and stuff, and so, I may not be on Skynet just right away, but I'll be listening at least. But you take care, and it was nice seeing you and seeing several of the other people that I hadn't seen in years, or even known I had met, but recognize their voice. We'll talk to you later. 7-3, N5IMS, clear.
Meeting on the air first and third Sunday, 7 p.m., W5FC. W5FC.
Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use a repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. My name is Brenda. I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time using the pro sound break and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control, that would be me, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to W5FC.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, What's Up, Space Exploration and Space History, Constellation of the Week, Space Launches of the Week, and recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and if there's time, 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. Let's start with low power and short time check-ins. Please come now with your call sign, name, and when you are transmitting from this evening. Please come now.
This is Whiskey 5 Golf Uniform Sierra. It's Gus, far northeast Dallas, low power 5-1.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WB4MFI, Dallas, Ted in Dallas, low power.
This is Kilo India 5 Uniform Juliet, Dustin in North Dallas, low power 5-1.
Huey Richardson, 5 watts.
Okay, I got W5GUS, Gus, WB4MFI, Ted, KI5UUI, Justin, and Huey in Richardson. Missed your call. Would you please repeat it?
Kilo, Foxtrot, 5, Papa, Lima, Lima, Huey, Richardson, 5 watts.
Very good. I got KF5PLL. Thank you for joining the net, Huey. Okay, let's go on to general check-ins now.
W5BLT, Whiskey 5, bacon, lettuce, tomato, Bill, garlic, no traffic.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill in Irving.
Kilo Delta Zero, Oscar X-Ray Charlie, Carter, Dallas.
Kilo Echo 5, India, Charlie X-Ray, Tom, Louisville.
This is Alpha Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert and Richardson.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz, Mesquite. This is Alpha Golf 5, Papa Mike, Rich and Rockwall, AG5 PM.
Okay, that's a fair number. We'll go ahead. W5 BLT, Bill. N5BB, Bill. KD0OXC, Carter. KE5ICX, Tom. AA5AH, Robert. KF5JHA, Chaz. And AG5PM, Rich. All right, do we have any Echolink check-ins? Okay, hearing none, let's go on to more regular check-ins. Please come now.
Kilo, Golf, 5, Uniform, Foxtrot, Romeo, Jacob, Farmers Branch.
Okay, I get KG5UFR. I think is that Jacob or Jake?
It is Jacob. Jacob, back to net control, KG5 UFR.
Okay, Jacob. Well, thank you for checking in. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? They can be ham, astronomical, space, or general interest to licensed hams. Okay, well, the AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 2 nets available to Dallas residents on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central. You will need Echolink installed and be registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, our live audio link is available on their website. There's amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston. Dallas AMSAT Net East Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.88 megahertz, PL 110.9 megahertz, Tuesdays. Tom, N5HYP, is the net control. All are welcome to check in. First Tuesday of the month is the DARC Club night, so no AMSAT East that night. Dallas AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.14 megahertz, PL 110.9 megahertz, positive offset. And the DAR hosted nets is one almost every night. Mondays, the first week, Ham Fixins. Second week, MCOM 101. Third week, Ham Fixins again. Fourth week, GeekNet. And fifth week, SurpriseNet. If we told you what it was, it wouldn't be a surprise. On-hour participation is encouraged. And on Tuesdays, we have AMSAT East at 8 p.m. And Fridays, CERT City simulation at 8 p.m. Learn about emergency radio communications via CERT-trained amateur radio operators. Melissa, KI5GRH, is usually the net control. Visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe every Friday. CERT City, all are welcome. Then on Saturdays, we have TechNet from 7 to 8, and of course Skynet at 9 p.m. First and third Sundays, the DARC Club meeting on the air, MOTA. Then every day we have the ARRL net, National Traffic System Training Net, every night at 6:30 p.m. Central. All are welcome to check in to any or all of these nets. Okay, let's take some more check-ins. Please come now.
Kilo Golf 5 Bravo Zulu Whiskey J near Weatherford. Short time, no traffic. I finally got my radio. Is that right?
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth.
Okay, we got KG5BZWJ and KB9SOK Sean. All right, we have, this is not the only net of the night, we have the Afterglow net. Directly after this at about 10:30. And we have a synopsis here. I would like to ask Tom, KE5ICX, to read this since he wrote it. Tom, would you do us the honors, please?
Oh, Brenda, I would love to. Here it is, tonight's Afterglow info. Write this down, there might be a test. Captain and physician Jim Hollenbeck kept getting Air Force pilots dumped into his waiting room. They all seemed to have the same problem. When he asked for a show of hands from pilots who felt there was a problem with the new plane ejection system, no one seemed to express doubt about it. That was until he realized each pilot's arm was broken and none could raise their hands to vote. This delayed Hollenbeck's analysis by at least a month. Hollenbeck suggested the Air Force use crash dummies rather than real pilots in all the testing going forward. In each and every case, the crash dummies were mangled, decapitated, flattened, rolled, spindled, and mutilated. It was abundantly clear to the good doctors the dummies were defective. They had to return to real pilots in their testing. Join us for High Adventure with On the Threshold of Space from 1956. And in case that's not bad enough, it was written by Lost in Space Shimon Witzelberg. Tonight at 10:30 p.m. Back to you, Brenda, KE5ICX.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, this is WB5OZL. Next, report on the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. The and call on Chaz, KF5JHA, to give us a report on that.
Thank you, Brenda. Good evening, everyone. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be held on Friday, June the 24th at 7:30 p.m. The meeting will be in person at the University of Dallas, but will also be held on Zoom. The featured speaker will be Joe Howard, the lead optical designer for the James Webb Space Telescope. Should be very interesting. And Saturday night public observing sessions have begun again. I do know that the one on the first Saturday of each month, the Garland one, has started up. The other ones are in the process of starting up. So anyway, Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night so that there could be an opportunity for live reports from the TASS public observing sessions into Skynet. So check the TASS website, texasastro.org, for up-to-date information and details about meetings and the public observing sessions. That's all I've got for the moment. This is KF5, JHA, back to Brenda.
Thank you. Next, National Space Society events and activities. Bill, N5BB, would you please tell us what's going on with them?
Well, very good. This is N5BB. I happen to be the membership director of the North Texas chapter of the National Space Society. We meet on the second Sunday afternoons of each month, which means we meet tomorrow, June the 12th, for our June meeting. Our meeting starts at 3:30 p.m. in Irving. Presentation starts at 4. We meet at Spring Creek Barbecue on the southwest corner of Highway 183 and Beltline in Irving, across the highway from Irving Mall, in 5BB. The meeting topic tomorrow, the presentation, is going to be by our chapter president, Ken Ruthin. He's going to give a presentation about near-Earth asteroids. What can we do about them? Which isn't zero. There's something we can do about them. And a few months ago, our chapter had a presentation by a woman from NASA who was in charge of essentially accumulating reports from telescopes about near-Earth asteroids and relaying those to other groups that could then train their telescopes on them in case there was one that was high priority. So we've already had some information from NASA about this, and now Ken's going to give us a presentation based on what he's put together. Our chapter also will have a birthday cake. Well, not a birthday cake. It's a celebratory cake. We'll be getting our cake. And the reason is our chapter won again. We won the best chapter in the world for National Space Society. So even though there are 6 NSS chapters in Texas and lots of other chapters around the U.S. and in some other countries, our chapter again was selected as the best chapter. We have a plaque to prove it and a cake to prove it. So we'll be eating our cake tomorrow afternoon. Again, the big event we've done recently was I described last week on Skynet. It was the International Space Development Conference in a suburb of Washington, D.C., over the Memorial Day weekend, and that was just amazing. I was there, as well as, I think, 8 of our chapter members were there. It was really neat. That's all the things I had to talk about for National Space Society. If you have any interest in National Space Society, you can reach me by sending me an email at space@byrom.net. That's SPACE@BYROM.net. Or you can send an email to me at N5BB, that's November 5 Bravo Bravo, N5BB @ARRL.net. And we do have a website and a Facebook page. Just look up National Space Society of North Texas, and you'll find us. This is N5BB. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. We have another check-in. KG5APL, Patrick, is checking in via Echolink. Right, now the feature presentation entitled 10 Things We Know About the Secret X-37b Space Plane. And this article is it's last August. I searched, and most of the articles are kind of old. Many years old, and I'm just kind of wondering why there's not a whole lot of information trickling out. But anyway, I found this kind of interesting. The U.S. Department of Defense's uncrewed X-37b Spy Plane is one of the most intriguing spaceships of the world, flying regular covert missions whose purposes aren't fully known. But over the years, information about the craft, which is also known as the Orbital Test Vehicle, or OTV, has come to light in dribs and drabs. That's a technical term. Here we take a look at 10 things that can be definitively said about the secretive space plane. Well, basic facts are available. The reusable X-37b, which resembles a smaller version of one of the NASA's now retired space shuttles, was originally built by NASA in 1999, as previously reported by Live Sciences' sister site, Space.com. It is around 29 feet long and 9.5 feet tall, with its wingspan is slightly less than 15 feet. It weighs 11,000 pounds when on the launch pad. Like the space shuttle, the X-37b takes off vertically and is propelled by a rocket. Once in orbit, it can maneuver on its own and eventually lands on a runway back on Earth, much like a conventional plane. The vehicle has a small payload area, roughly the size of a pickup truck bed, enabling it to carry gear and satellites. It operates at an altitude between 150 and 500 miles above the Earth, according to its manufacturer, Boeing. Next, different military branches have had it over the years. NASA transferred 2 X-37b vehicles to the Pentagon's Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, that's DARPA, in 2004. After being operated by the U.S. Air Force for many years, the robotic spy planes came under the purview of the newly established Space Force in 2020. Next, nobody knows quite what it's up to. Despite flying 6 missions to date, the X-37b's true purpose remains a mystery. Some possibilities include surveillance of the Earth's surface from on high and deploying spy satellites, though nothing has ever been confirmed. More out-there theories have been proposed, such as the notion that the X-37b could be a space-based vehicle for spying on the Chinese space station, or a means for the U.S. military to interfere with other countries' satellites. Experts have splashed cold water on all these ideas, saying they would require large amounts of fuel or would be too easy to trace back to the American military. Next, it can remain in space for years. One of the 2 X-37bs accomplished its first launch in 2010 and spent 224 days in space. Its partner vehicle first flew a year later and remained in orbit for more than double that amount of time. The current record for the spacecraft is 780 days, more than 2 full years, in orbit, which occurred during the 5th flight of the X-37b. What it was doing up there for all that time remains a mystery. Next, it can launch on a SpaceX rocket. While the X-37b has typically ridden United Launch Alliance's Atlas V booster into space, the vehicle is capable of being launched by different rockets. During its fifth mission in 2017, the military changed things up a bit and used a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket to take it into orbit. Next, civilians have photographed an X-37b. Though it is a clandestine piece of military hardware, the X-37b is not immune to being spotted by civilian skywatchers. The vehicle's launch times are publicly announced, which enabled satellite tracker Russell Eberst of Edinburgh, Scotland, to determine where it would be in the sky and see it through a telescope on October 2017. Netherlands-based sky sleuth C. Spasa did the same that year. And a Dutch skywalker and satellite tracker named Ralph Vandenberg was able to photograph the robotic vehicle as it orbited overhead in 2019. It can carry experiments. Shortly before the most recent X-37b launch in 2020, the U.S. military revealed that the spy plane had a new service module attached to its rear that allowed for large numbers of experiments to be carried to orbit. The incorporation of a service module on this mission enables us to continue to expand the capabilities of the spacecraft and host more experiments than any of the previous missions. Ralph Walden, Director and Program Executive Officer for the Development of the Air Force Rapid Capabilities Office, said in a statement. The mission deployed a small satellite known as Falcon Sat 8, which contained 5 experimental payloads, some developed by the U.S. Air Force and some developed by NASA. While NASA has stated it was flying an experiment on a previous X-37b flight, this is the first time the military had disclosed any specifics about such cargo. It has won awards. In 2020, the X-37b was given the Collier Trophy, one of the most prominent awards in aviation. Let me stop here for a second. I just, before the net, found out that the Mars helicopter team was awarded the Collier Trophy yesterday, which is pretty exciting. It was too late to get it into the text here. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. Anyway, for pushing the boundaries of flight and space exploration, according to the U.S. Air Force. Sophisticated and uncrewed, the X-37b advances reusable space plane technologies and operates experiments in space that are returned for further examination on Earth. Previous Collier Trophies winners include Orville Wright, Howard Hughes, the Apollo 11 Lunar Landing Team, the International Space Station, and the B-52. It is designed to frustrate enemies. During a panel at the Aspen Security Forum in 2019, former Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson revealed that the X-37b may be able to fly low enough to use Earth's atmosphere to alter its orbit. Wilson said that the vehicle's maneuvers are specifically designed to drive adversaries such as Russia and China nuts because they're unable to predict exactly how it will behave. Next, a crewed version was once in the works. Back in 2011, Boeing studied different vehicle designs that the X-37b could eventually evolve into. A paper by company engineer Arthur Grants titled X-37b Orbital Test Vehicle and Derivatives mentioned a version called the X-37c that would be larger and able to carry astronauts. But since then, little of information about the X-37c has appeared. Okay, well, I hope that in due time we'll get more information about it. So, let's see. How about another call for check-ins?
Kilo India 5.
Victor, Mike, India. Justin,
Sierra Golf, Antonio in Dallas.
Kilo India 5, Golf Romeo Hotel, Melissa, Dallas.
Okay, I got one started with KF5 and then you drifted away, so would you please come back and repeat that?
Kilo India 5, Victor, Mike, India, Justin in Bedford.
Okay, I copy KI5 VMI, Justin. Next, A69SG, Antonio. Then KI5 GRH, Melissa. Thanks for everybody for joining the net. All right, our next segment is called What's Up? I'm going to call on Taz, KF5JHA, to tell us what's up.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Brenda, I should say. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. I work at the Astrophysics Labs and Geology Labs at the Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus, and we call this segment of Skynet What's Up? Slide Master, that would be the person that's over there on the video version of this. Please change to slide number 2, please. On June the 7th, the moon was at first quarter, so the current phase of the moon is a waxing gibbous. On June the 14th, the moon is full. Also on June the 14th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 357,432 kilometers. On June the 20th, the moon is at its third quarter phase. On June the 28th, the moon is new. And on June the 29th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 406,580 kilometers. Slide Master, slide number 3, please. This morning, June the 11th, the planets Venus and Uranus were only about 1.5 degrees apart in the eastern morning sky in this conjunction. Now, tomorrow morning, Sunday morning, they'll also still be pretty close together. You probably need to use a telescope or at least a very good pair of binoculars in order to see the planet Uranus. So, hey, should be clear tomorrow morning. Go out and take a look. Slide Master, slide number 4, please. The June Lyrid meteor shower peaks on the night of June the 16th, 17th, and is estimated to have about 20 or maybe a few more meteors per hour. The best time to observe the meteors is an hour before dawn in the early morning sky. As I always do, I suggest visiting one of the 80 Texas state parks or wildlife refuges where you can camp, and they're mostly far away from the city lights. Slide Master, slide number 5. Saturn and the moon will be in conjunction on June the 18th in the early morning southern sky. And Slide Master, slide number 6. On June the 21st, Jupiter and the moon will be in conjunction in the early morning southeastern sky with Mars pretty close by. And Slide Master, slide number 7. Also on June the 21st at 4:14 a.m. Central Daylight Time is the moment of the summer solstice for the northern hemisphere. This is the longest day and shortest night for the northern hemisphere. The sun rises and sets at its furthest northern point on the horizon. This is a result of the tilt of the Earth's axis of rotation. On June 21st, the northern hemisphere is more directly pointed toward the sun than at any other time of the year. Hope that gives you a little bit more information. Slide Master, slide number 8. On the very next morning, on June the 22nd, Mars and the moon are in conjunction in the early morning southeastern morning sky. And Jupiter's not too far away because the moon was close to it just the day before. Slide Master, slide number 9. Also on June 22nd, in the low eastern early morning sky, this is probably during strong twilight, you'll be able to observe Venus next to the Pleiades in the sky. And you know the Pleiades. You've seen it before, haven't you? And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 10. Oh, I'm so glad that JJ showed up over on Echolink. Brenda, you'll have to sign him in. He usually doesn't talk on Echolink. That would be Delta Dawn. That'll be watching the meteor shower. Yeah, that's just a response to his chat over on Echolink. Oh, Slide Master 10, yes. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be held once again on June the 24th at 7:30 p.m. It's going to be an in-person meeting at the University of Dallas. If you want to check in via Zoom, you could do that too. Featured speaker will be Joe Howard from NASA, the lead optical designer for the James Webb Space Telescope. It should be interesting. And of course, Saturday night public observing sessions have begun, but one's not going on tonight. For detailed information about the Texas Astronomical Society and its activities, go to texasastro.org. Now, Slide Master, slide number 11. Do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information? Or do you just have a general astronomy question? Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill. Oh, it's quiet out there. Maybe all of you are as tired as I was. I was at the Mesquite Rodeo Road Rally this morning. I just have to remember all the R's that are in there. And it was hot out there. I'm sort of worn out from doing that. So, Slide Master, slide number 12. So as the moon waned at the end of May, so do these words for the segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for a world that's the only one where humans live, and pray for the people of Ukraine. Until next week, well, actually, I'll be doing another segment on Skynet. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is Chaz, KF5, JHA, back to our net control. Brenda, it's all back to you now.
Thank you, Chaz. An N5IMS JJ. And this is WB50ZL. Do we have any more check-ins?
Kilo India 5, Sierra X-ray Echo, over.
Would you come back with your full call and your name, please?
Roger, Roger. Kilo India 5, Sugar X-ray Echo, Brandon, out of Wiley, over.
Thank you, KI5SXE. Brandon, welcome to the net.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful net going, and just standing by, over.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up is space exploration, space history, and astronaut birthdays. And it's my turn to put this together this week, but it's because I'm doing the NCS. Tom has agreed to read it for me so I don't lose my voice. So KE5ICX, would you please do a...
I'll be happy to do that, Brenda. Now, one thing you got to keep in mind, too, is that Brenda had to put together the presentation, and she had to put together the space exploration, space history. We have two people that do space exploration and space history because it's a lot of work, so they spread it out. But when you're also net controlled, it's a lot of reading, so I'm going to do that for her now. So in space exploration news, Webb gets hit by a larger-than-expected micrometeoroid. James Webb Space Telescope is hit by a tiny micrometeoroid, a tiny rock fragment that hit the new James Webb Space Telescope's main mirror. Well, it has more than one. The damage inflicted by the dust-sized micrometeoroid is producing a noticeable effect in the observatory's data, but it is not expected to limit the mission's overall performance. Next up, amino acids discovered on an asteroid. This is from Tokyo, Japan's Hayabusa 2 space mission, which brought to Earth samples from an asteroid in late 2020, has found more than 20 types of amino acids in it, according to the Japanese space agency JAXA. In 2018, Hayabusa 2 launched atop a landed atop a moving asteroid named Ryugu and collected particles from above and below its surface. In December 2020, it returned to Earth with a sealed capsule containing about 5 grams of dust and rock. The discovery of amino acids showed for the first time that they exist on an asteroid in space, the Japan Times reported. Amino acids are substances that make proteins and are indispensable for life. This announcement was made earlier this week. A rock is caught in Perseus wheel. Since at least early February, NASA's Perseverance rover has had a rock clinging to its front left wheel. While other Martian rocks have previously latched onto rovers for weeks at a time, this particular rock has stuck around for months, reaching pet rock status. After landing in Jezero crater in February of 2021, the Perseverance rover began sampling Martian rocks and looking for signs of ancient life. And since at least February of 2022, the car-sized robot has not been doing it alone. The little pet rock hitched a ride on NASA's Crater Floor campaign and since continued a long trek on the long planet. Now we have a bunch of, let's see here, space-related birthdays. We have David Scott, June 6, 1932. He flew on Gemini 8, Apollo 9, and Apollo 15. Anne McCain, born January 7, 1979, was on Soyuz MS-11 and Expedition 5859. Bruce McCandless, II, June 8, 1937, flew on STS-41b and STS-31. James McDivitt, June 10, 1929, Gemini 4 and Apollo 9. Stanley G. Love, June 8, 1965, STS-122. Richard A. Searfoss, June 5, 1956, flew on STS-58, 76, and 90. J.C. Bucky, June 6, 1956, flew on STS-90. James Van Hoffen, June 11, 1944, flew STS-41C and 51I. F. Drew Gaffney, June 9, 1946, flew STS-40. And on June 9th, German astronomer Johann Gottfried Galle, born in 1812, was born in 1812. In 1846, he became the first person to view and identify the planet Neptune after receiving a letter indicating where to look. Now, this week in space history, 15 years ago, on June 5th, the Messenger spacecraft flew past Venus on its way to Mercury, passing just 338 kilometers above the planet's surface, and shot a laser into the clouds. This is one of the color images of Venus that it captured on the flyby. So if you're looking at the picture, it looks almost black and white, but it's not. And one of my favorites, the Manned Orbiting Laboratory, or MOL, was a joint project of the U.S. Air Force and the National Reconnaissance Office. It was canceled by Richard Nixon on June 10, 1969. The loss was NASA's gain. 7 of the mission astronauts went on to fly on shuttle missions. By the way, I have a copy of that article from Time magazine in my scrapbook about that. I always wondered about what they were doing. And then finally, 7 years ago, June 10th, SpaceX CRS-5 was launched to the International Space Station, where it delivered the Cloud Aerosol Transport System, or CATS, an instrument that used laser pulses to analyze Earth's atmospheric particles and clouds. And that's it, Miss Brenda. That's what I got. Send the net back to you. Thank you for doing this report from KE5ICX.
Okay, thank you so much. Here's birthdays we've got. David Scott, June 6, 1932. Gemini 8, Apollo 9, Apollo 15. Anne McLean. I apologize. I was distracted by the fact that I had left something out, and I want to make this correction. This guy that spotted Uranus got a letter from Urbain de Verrier, a French astronomer, and somehow I didn't get that copied and pasted over. Okay, next up, Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week, Chaz, KF5JHA. Take it away, Chaz.
Thank you, Brenda. Slide Master, slide number 13. Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week is named in honor of Silent Key, Carolyn KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 till May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. In her honor, we have continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's constellations of the week this week are Boötes, the Shepherd, and Corona Borealis, the Northern Crown. Boötes represents a shepherd or herdsman. Most people think that it looks like a kite or an ice cream cone. A double-dipped cone from Brahms sounds good right about now, doesn't it? I mean, it was almost 103 at the Brookhaven campus this afternoon. 102.9, I think, was the high temperature there. Okay. Slide Master, slide number 14, please. There's one very bright star in Boötes, Arcturus, which is the fourth brightest star in the sky. You can find Arcturus by using the handle of the Big Dipper. Follow the curve of the arc of the handle and you'll run into Arcturus. Other interesting stars in Boötes are Izar, Mu Boötes, Kappa Boötes, and Chi Boötes. I'll concentrate on deep sky objects though tonight. Slide Master, slide number 15. This object is NGC 5466. It is 9.2 arcsecond in size, and its brightness is a 9.1 magnitude. It's a globular cluster that is small and faint. It requires a large aperture telescope to properly resolve. Looks like a fuzzy ball in an 8-inch or 10-inch telescope. It is challenging to find with binoculars. The challenge for this week to observe NGC 5466 with binoculars. So I would suggest a pair of 20 by 80 binoculars in dark skies. That would be the best place to look for it with big binoculars. Slide Master, slide number 16, please. The next object is NGC 5248, which is a barred spiral galaxy of magnitude 10.3. Smaller telescopes under 8 inches can see it, but only a weak glow with little or no structure visible. Stephen James Amir was able to spy this 10th magnitude galaxy with his 7 by 35 binoculars from Hawaii at an elevation of 4,200 feet. But it took much time and effort to do so. It is easy to see some structure in this galaxy with a 10-inch telescope at the Texas Star Party. And his entry for the galaxy in his book, The Caldwell Object, Stephen James Amiro, writes that Barbara Wilson saw a beautiful structure with the arms revealing many small knots in her 20-inch telescope. And this was probably at the Texas Star Party. Slide Master, slide number 17, please. The final object I'll cover on BOTs is NGC 5676, a spiral galaxy that requires a larger size telescope to resolve. It's a very challenging object to locate. It looks like a faint fuzzy patch of light in an 8-inch telescope in dark skies. You can begin to see some details in a 12-inch or larger telescope. You might be able to notice NGC 5660, a separate spiral galaxy nearby, looking very similar, dim and fuzzy. And this is KF5, JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 18. Corona Borealis is the northern crown. It could be considered a scoop of ice cream that has fallen off the ice cream cone of Boötes. But as a crown, Gamma, or Alpaca, is the brightest star in Corona Borealis. It's the gem star in the crown. It's a spectroscopic binary that is about 75 light years away from the Earth. A small yellow star orbits around the white primary star and partially eclipses it, causing the slight reduction in its brightness, about 1/10 of a magnitude. Sigma Corona Borealis and Zeta Corona Borealis are very similar double stars that each have a brighter member and a dimmer secondary. Now, R Corona Borealis, it's one of the two variable stars that are famous in this constellation. Both are examples of particular classes of variable stars that they represent. R Corona Borealis is a prototype for a rare group of variable stars which shine at maximum throughout most of their cycles, shining about 6 magnitude, around that brightness. However, at irregular intervals, it will quickly dim to somewhere around 7th to 15th magnitude, usually hovering around 12.5 magnitude, and its brightness fluctuating erratically during its minimum. T Corona Borealis is another famous variable star, also known as the Blaze Star. T Corona Borealis is a reoccurring nova. Normally it shines about 10th magnitude, but when it has erupted in the past, it's reached naked eye visibility. 2 eruptions have been recorded, one in 1866 where it reached 2nd magnitude, and again in 1946 where it reached magnitude 3.2. Should be interesting if it does it again. Slide Master, slide number 19, please. NGC 5958 is a face-on spiral galaxy in Corona Borealis. It shines at a dim magnitude 12.9. It can be observed in a 16-inch telescope. Wonder who has one of those. But just too faint to be seen in an 8-inch telescope. And Slide Master, slide number 20. NGC 6085 and 6086. These are 2 galaxies that can both fit in the same field of view in an eyepiece of low to medium powers. NGC 6085 is a face-on spiral galaxy shining at a dim 14.3 magnitude. Don't think you're going to see that with binoculars. And NGC 6086 is magnitude 12.8, much brighter. Neither of these 2 galaxies can be seen in an 8-inch telescope. All right, and this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 21. There are a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Boötes and Corona Borealis and the Northern Crown. I'm just giving you a sampling of a few of these objects. And the Astronomical League has about 73 different observing programs, and all of them have about 100 objects in them. There's a couple of exceptions. We don't need to talk about that. If you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen in about a year from the Astronomical League. In Slide Master slide, this is number 22. That is Miss Carolyn's constellations of the week, Boötes, the Shepherd, and Corona Borealis, the Northern Crown. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words on deep sky objects that I've used used, borrowed, and stolen every night. Also, at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Next time I'll take a look at the wolf, Lupus. Oh no, I just realized something. I left out the jokes of the week. Oh well, guess I have to do a double dose next week. And this is KF5 JHA sending it back to our net control. It's all yours, Brenda. 73, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you, Jazz. I was wondering what those jokes were. I was looking for them here in the script. And I thought something's there's a disturbance in the force. All right. Do we have any more check-ins? Okay, next up, space launches for this week. I'm going to call on Tom, KE5ICX. Do you have any space launches for us?
Oh, yes, Miss Brenda, I definitely do. I got a bunch of them. So remember, one of the cool things is, since we're all space nerds, you can go and watch any of these launches. Just be aware that they're there. Subscribe to space.com is a good place to go. They'll let you know when the launches will occur. Also, nasa.gov is also a good site for that. And this is how I'm able to actually watch some of these things live when they take off. I get all my information from Spaceflight Now launch schedule at spaceflightnow.com/launch schedule. So here we go. In June, no date yet to be determined, will be from Launch Complex 1B from Mahia Peninsula in New Zealand. A Rocket Lab Electron rocket will launch NASA's CIS Lunar Autonomous Positioning System Technology Operations and Navigation Experiment, or CAPSTONE, mission to the moon. CAPSTONE will fly to the moon on Rocket Lab's Photon Space Tug, entering a unique halo-like lunar orbit to test deep space navigation and communications in the same orbit to be used by NASA's Gateway Mini Space Station. This was moved from Launch Complex 2 in Virginia to Launch Complex 1 in New Zealand. Boy, who knew that those launch complexes were so far apart? In June, also to be determined, is a Falcon 9 Starlink 4-19 launch with another batch of Starlink Internet satellites. Falcon 9's first stage booster will land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. That's at Launch Complex 39A, Kennedy Space Center, Florida. June 18th, next week, we have a launch from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California, SLC-4 Echo. SpaceX Falcon 9 will launch the Sarah-1 radar remote sensing satellite for the German military. Sarah-1 is the first of 3 synthetic aperture radar satellites for the German military. It was built by Airbus. Falcon 9's first stage booster will return to landing zone 4 at Vandenberg. June 22nd, we have a big launch. This is the ELA-3 from Conroe, French Guiana. The Ariane 5 ECA rocket designated VA-257 to launch the MEETSat 3D and GSat-24 communication satellites. Built by Airbus Defence and Space for MEESat, the Malaysian operator MEESat 3D is a multi-mission communication satellite outfitted with C-band, Ku-band, and Ka-band payloads for direct-to-home TV broadcasting and internet services over Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. GSat-24 is a direct-to-home TV broadcasting satellite for the Indian Space Research Organization. Also in June, and this is one we're waiting, well, maybe not waiting for, but it's the SSLV launch from Satish Dhawan Space Center in Sriharikota, India. The India Small Satellite Launch Vehicle, or SSLV, will launch on its first orbital test flight, consisting of 3 solid-fueled stages and a liquid-fueled upper stage. The SSLV is a new Indian launch vehicle designed to carry small satellites into low Earth orbit. Also in June, we have Tropics 3 and 4, which will launch from SLC-46, Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, Florida. Commercial small satellite launch vehicle developed by Astra will launch a second pair of CubeSats for NASA's Tropics mission. The time-resolved observations of precipitation structure and storm intensity with a constellation of small sats, or tropics, mission will measure environmental and inner core conditions for tropical cyclones. Then we have from Launch Complex 39A, Kennedy Space Center, SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch the Dragon 2 spacecraft on its fifth cargo resupply mission to the International Space Station. Falcon 9's first stage booster will land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. The flight is the 25th mission by SpaceX conducted under the Commercial Resupply Services contract with NASA. Next, on June 28th, launch time to be determined from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Falcon 9 rocket will launch the SES-22 communication satellite for SES of Luxembourg. Built by Thales Alenia Space, SES-22 will provide C-band television and data services in the United States. On June 29th, we have from SLC-41, Cape Canaveral, an Atlas V United Launch Alliance rocket will launch the USSF-12 mission with Wide Field of View, or WFOV, experimental missile warning satellite for the U.S. Space Force. WFOV hosts a new type of infrared staring sensor in geosynchronous orbit to detect the heat from missile launch plumes. The USSF-12 mission will include additional rideshare payloads. The rocket will fly in the 541 configuration with a 5-meter fairing, 4 solid rocket boosters, and a single-engine Centaur upper stage. And I'll do one more. There's a bunch that go into July, but I think I should have just stuck with June. But here they are, this final one. Alpha is a multi-payload to be determined. This will launch from SLC-2W at the Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The Firefly Alpha rocket will launch on its second test flight with a rideshare payload consisting of multiple unspecified small satellites. And that's all I'm going to do at this point. There are some others here, but I think this just goes on, and I don't want to bore everyone with tons and tons of launches. But as you can tell, there are a bunch of them. Every day, virtually, there's some launch, or every other day there's a launch of some satellite somewhere in the world. Back to you, Brenda, from KE5ICX.
Thank you very much, Tom. All right, next up, the question that has kept you all awake at night. Why Uranus and Neptune are different colors. Astronomers may now understand why the similar planets Uranus and Neptune are different colors. Using observations from the Gemini North Telescope, the NASA Infrared Telescope Facility, and the Hubble Space Telescope, researchers have developed a single atmospheric model that matches observations of both planets. The model reveals that excess haze on Uranus builds up in the planet's stagnant, sluggish atmosphere and makes it appear lighter tone than Neptune. Neptune and Uranus have much in common. They have similar masses, sizes, and atmospheric compositions, yet their appearances are notably different. At visible wavelengths, Neptune has a distinct bluer color, whereas Uranus is a pale shade of cyan. Astronomers now have an explanation for why the two planets are different colors. The research suggests that a layer of concentrated haze that exists on both planets is thicker on Uranus than a similar layer on Neptune and whitens Uranus's appearance more than Neptune's. If there were no haze in the atmospheres of Neptune and Uranus, both would appear almost equally blue. This conclusion comes from a model that an international team led by Patrick Irwin, professor of planetary physics at Oxford University developed to describe aerosol layers in the atmospheres of Neptune and Uranus. Previous investigations of these planets' upper atmospheres had focused on the appearance of the atmosphere at only specific wavelengths. However, this new model, consisting of multiple atmospheres, matches observations from both planets across a wide range of wavelengths. The new model also includes haze particles within deeper layers than had previously been thought to contain only clouds of methane and hydrogen sulfide ices. This is the first model to simultaneously fit observations of reflected sunlight from ultraviolet to near-infrared wavelengths, explained Irwin, who is the lead author of a paper presenting this result in the Journal of Geophysical Research, Planets. It is also the first to explain the difference in visible color between Uranus and Neptune. The team's model consists of 3 layers of aerosols at different heights. The key layer that affects the colors is the middle layer, which is a layer of haze particles referred to in the paper as the aerosol 2 layer that is thicker on Uranus than on Neptune. The team suspects that on both planets, methane ice condenses onto the particles in this layer, pulling the particles deeper into the atmosphere in a shower of methane snow. Because Neptune has a more active turbulent atmosphere than Uranus does, the team believes that Neptune's atmosphere is more efficient at churning up methane particles into the haze layer and producing this snow. This removes more of the haze and keeps Neptune's haze layer thinner than it is on Uranus, meaning the blue color of Neptune looks stronger. We hoped that developing this model would help us understand clouds and hazes in the ice giant atmospheres, commented Mike Wong, an astronomer at the University of California, Berkeley, and a member of the team behind this result. Explaining the difference in color between Uranus and Neptune was an unexpected bonus. To create this model, Irwin's team analyzed a set of observations of the planets encompassing ultraviolet, visible, and near-infrared wavelengths taken with the near-infrared integral field spectrometer, NIFS, on a Gemini North Telescope near the summit of Mauna Kea in Hawaii, which is part of the International Gemini Observatory, a program of NSF's NOR lab, as well as archival data from the NASA Infrared Telescope facility, also located in Hawaii, and the NASA ESA Hubble Space Telescope. The NIFS estimate on Gemini North is particularly important to this result as it is able to provide spectra, measurements of how bright an object is at different wavelengths for every point in its field of view. This provided the team with detailed measurements of how reflective both planets' atmospheres are across both the full disk of the planet and across a range of near-infrared wavelengths. The Gemini observatories continue to deliver new insights into the nature of our planetary neighbors, said Martin Still, Gemini Program Officer at the National Science Foundation. In this experiment, Gemini North provided a component within a suite of ground and space-based facilities crucial to the detection and characterization of atmospheric hazes. The model also helps explain the dark spots that are occasionally visible on Neptune and less commonly detected on Uranus. While astronomers were already aware of the presence of dark spots in the atmospheres of both planets, they didn't know which aerosol layer was causing these dark spots or why the aerosols at those layers are less reflective. The team's research sheds light on these questions by showing that a darkening of the deepest layer of their model would produce dark spots similar to those seen on Neptune and perhaps Uranus. All right. This is from ScienceDaily.com. So, up next, let's pause for some more check-ins. Okay, our next segment is visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. Tom, KE5, ICX, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, I've got a few. There aren't a lot of really favorable passes right now, so this will go quick. I think our net's going to end early tonight. Let's see, nothing ISS of interest, so the only thing I got is Tiangong, the Chinese space station, and Envisat, the old reliable when nothing else is in a favorable position. So Tiangong has a couple of passes. Let me read them to you. We've got June 20th is a good pass, 4.0. Wait a minute, let me make sure this is right. The second pass with a 2.4 magnitude at 4:57 a.m. It reaches its highest point at 5 o'clock, 42 degrees, and it falls to the north-northeast at 5:03. Then Envisat has two passes. Yep, that's all I got, folks. The first one is June 15th, 3.4 magnitude at 5:48. 07 at north-northeast, reaches its highest point at 68 degrees at 5:53, and then it will fall to the south at 5:58. Then June 18th, 3.9 magnitude at 5:36 a.m. out of the north-northeast, reaches its highest point at 5:41, 51 degrees, and then falls to the south at 5:46. That's it. Really didn't have a lot to put out there this week. Back to you, Brenda, KE5ICX.
All right, we are kind of wrapping up a little early tonight. But our next segment is Astronomical Q&A. Anybody have any questions or comments or need any fills? Okay, well, do we have any more check-ins? Okay, then, tonight we had, oh, I forgot to count. Hold on. We had 21 hams participating on the air. Thanks to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. So, until next Saturday night, this is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda. Going to be closing the net at 10:13 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. But it's not our last night. Tom, do you want to say anything about Afterglow that comes on in a few minutes? This is KE5ICX.
Yeah, Brenda, we're going to start at our normal time, which is at 10:30. There's a number of folks that that have to prepare for traffic net over on 72, and they do show up over here. So we'll just start at 10:30 like we normally do. Tonight's movie, Beyond the Threshold of Space. So that is coming up at 10:30, KE5ICX.
Thank you. All right, 72 everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. See you in a few minutes. This is WB50ZL.
KI5 KWG Kerchunking.
Normal state.
Okay, well, it's time. Yeah, you get hear a lot of me this evening, but what the heck. Here we go. Tonight's movie was selected from the YouTube archives, and it is a film I'd never heard of before, called On the Threshold of Space from 1956. It's directed by Robert Webb, starred Guy Madison, Virginia Lee.
I'm completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Who actually died during the production of this film. It was his final film, died 6 months before it was released. On the Threshold of Space provides a historical depiction of Air Force tests made in the United States for the imminent space race. So this film actually is rooted in scientific fact. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you the plot. I want you to mull that over. Hopefully you saw the film. If you didn't, that's okay. I will take check-ins after I read the synopses, and you let me know who you are by your call sign and your name, and did you see the film? And like I said, if you did not, that's okay. We have plenty to talk about in this film. And then we'll have a first round where we talk about the plot. Second round, we talk about the acting and characterization, and a third round, which is just about anything having to do with special effects, music, photography, something you missed in the first rounds, and any final comments. So let's go ahead and get started. I will read the plot from Wikipedia, of course. Captain Jim Hollenbach, played by Guy Madison, a dedicated physician assigned to the space branch of the United States Air Force Medical Corps, voluntarily undergoes jump school training. He wants to better analyze the effects of parachute jumps on the human body. After jump school, Lieutenant Colonel Masters, played by Walter Coy, the head of the space program, sends Jim to Sliver Air Force Base in Florida to evaluate the problematic experimental ejection seat. While ejecting from his aircraft, test pilot Mike Bentley, played by Warren Stevens, broke his shoulder. Jim is assigned to determine what had happened. In a test when his arm is also broken, Jim determines that the wind blast during ejection forced his arm off the ejection release. Once the seat mechanism is modified, a series of tests at supersonic speeds are begun with rocket sleds launched at 1,000 miles per hour. Dr. Hugh Thornton, played by Dean Jagger, head of the program and Jim's mentor, wants Jim to test the first balloon gondola designed to carry a man 20 miles up into the threshold of space, the first step towards putting a man into space. Before accepting the assignment, Jim asked his fiancée, Pat Lang, played by Virginia Leaf, for her blessing, and the couple marry, but the honeymoon is cut short by news that Colonel Masters was killed in an automobile accident. Jim rushes back to the base, where Major Ward Thomas, played by John Hodiak, is the new head of the program. Thomas is more cautious and cancels Jim's high-altitude balloon flight. Jim is instructed to take Lieutenant Morton Glenn, played by Martin Milner, yes, that Martin Milner, to a height of 55,000 feet, and then lower the gondola to 10,000 feet, where Glenn will parachute to Earth. The test goes badly, with Glenn freezing and Jim completing the jump, but is reprimanded. Meanwhile, tests proceed on the rocket sleds with crash dummies. After a dummy is decapitated, Thomas plans to test the sled himself and is assigned Jim to act as physician for the trial. At 1,000 miles per hour, the Major is temporarily blinded, but soon regains his sight, and the test is proclaimed a success. When Washington authorized a floating high-altitude platform, Jim is assigned the first high-altitude balloon flight. Reaching 100,000 feet, his radio fails, and when he drifts over rugged mountain terrain, Jim discovers his oxygen is nearly gone, forcing him to land. While descending, his matter-of-fact reports to his supervisors relay what is happening to his body. After the gondola crashes in the mountains, the helicopter locates the balloon and finds Jim alive, but dazed. Now, because this has some deeply rooted in truth, I think you'll find this interesting about the production. On the Threshold of Space documents the testing of downward-firing ejection seats from the Boeing 47 Stratojet bombers that were conducted at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida, initially between October 7th and October 21st, 1953. 9 tests were conducted of the seat from the B-47 over Eglin's water ranges over the Gulf of Mexico by the air-proving ground at an altitude of 10,000 feet and at various speeds. The second series of tests was also conducted on July 8th, 1954 after refinements to the system. These tests were recreated in the film shot at Eglin in 1955 with a different Stratojet from the one in the actual missions. Actually, feel the star of the movie will be the Air Force and the progress it's making in the aeromedical field, said Robert Webb, director, in commenting on the film. It'll deal with the Air Force work in aeromedical field and will include actual shots of experimentations and the Air Force sled being made under direction of Lieutenant Colonel John Paul Stapp, Air Force surgeon, who appeared on the cover of the September 12, 1955 issue of Time magazine. Says that On the Threshold of Space was reviewed in the New York Times by A.M. Weller, who noted, colorful proof that science can be stranger and more interesting than science fiction is presented on the Threshold of Space, which landed on the globe yesterday. The Los Angeles Times called it impressive. All right, enough of my jabbering. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and take check-ins for tonight's movie, On the Threshold of Space from 1956. So please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see On the Threshold of Space? If you didn't, that's okay too. Please come now.
Kilo, India 5, Sierra X-ray Echo.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill and Irving, yes, I saw the movie.
Kilo 0, Foxtrot Echo Romeo, Chris in Dallas, and I saw about half of it.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda in DeSoto. Yes, I saw it.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey J in their Weber. I thought so.
Kilo Italy 5, Sierra X-ray Echo, doing a recheck. Name is Brandon. I did not see the movie. Over.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, I've seen the movie.
Kilo India 5, Kilo Whiskey Golf Cruise in Arlington, and yes, I saw the movie.
W5BLT, Bill. Saw the movie short time tonight, though, so I won't get to add my 2 cents, but just wanted to give you a check-in, and I'll be listening, kind of struggling to stay awake. W5BLT.
Nice check-ins, everyone. Well, let's see here. Let me get down the list here. I got KI5SXE, that's Brandon. He didn't see the movie, but we'll give you a chance to comment anyway. N5BB, Bill in Irving, yep, you saw it. K0FER, Chris in Dallas, yes, you saw it. WB50ZL, Miss Brenda, Dallas, yep, she saw it. KG5BZWJ, you cut out. Did you see the film or not?
G5BZWJ, yeah, I saw it.
Okay, thank you. You just cut out just as you said whether it was a yay or nay. Okay, I got you down as yup, as having seen it. KB9SOK, Sean in Fort Worth, yep, you saw it. KI5KWG, Cruz is back. Yes, over in Arlington, he saw it. And W5 Delta Lima Tango, Philip, did I get your call sign right? I got you down for a short time. You did see the film, or most of it. Did I get your call right?
BLT, Bill, Whiskey 5, Bacon, Lettuce, Tomato, short time, so I'm just wanted to give you a check-in and say, yes, I did see the movie.
No, it's Bill. I just mangled everything on your call. Okay, sorry about that. I should have recognized. Somehow I got transfixed by the wrong call sign, and I thought you said Philip. So I was completely confused. I got you. You're first on the runway. I'm going to take you first so that you can do what you need to do afterwards. So very good. Any other check-ins, please come now. Okay, well then let's get started. Bill, W5BLT, what did you think? And you can elaborate on as many things as you would like since you are short time, starting with the plot from KE5ICX.
Okay, thank you, and sorry about that. It's been a long day, and I'm struggling, so I'm not sure if I can make it all the way through. So I love this movie, partly because some of the stuff was based on some history, so I kind of like the plot. I thought they captured the fears of space travel and going into space well. It sounds hokey, some of the things that they were worried about, maybe to us today, but back then that was an unknown. And I'm kind of a sucker for the old science fiction movies, so again, thought the dialogue and all that was very good. The copy that I found was actually in stereo, which I'm kind of pleasantly surprised. So I love what they did, and it was a good movie. I'm going to try to stick around and listen, but I'm nodding off here. So thanks for letting me check in short time, and we'll try to get a little more rest next Saturday and make the full net. W5BLT.
good. Thank you, Bill. And you're not alone. I'm going to tell you this. The way I stay awake on Saturday night for these nets and get to midnight, I don't know about the rest of you, but I take a nap. I take a minimum of a 1-hour nap in the afternoon. In fact, today, I was kind of pooped out. I took a 2-hour nap around 3 to 5. So, yeah, it's a long day. If you're doing things throughout the day, which I most definitely was. All right, Brandon, hang in there. I'm going to come back to you in a little bit after a few of these other folks check in and give you synopses, and then I'm curious as to what you think of the film. So I'm going to go to the top of the list and go to N5BB. Bill and Irving, welcome back. Bill, you saw the film. What did you think about it?
Well, thank you, Tom. This is N5BB. I also had a very long day running a Zoom conference for North Texas Renewable Energy Conference group this morning, so I'm also pretty tired. Well, the movie was okay. I don't think I would watch it a second time. Of course, it had a lot of real footage from the Air Force in different places. And, a pretty straightforward plot. There was a little bit of love interest in things, and it seemed like a propaganda film for the Air Force and what they were doing, kind of positive Air Force all the way through. It created a little bit of tension between some of the characters, but it all worked out, et cetera, et cetera. So as far as, and I don't know where to put this, whether to discuss it now or later. I guess I'll discuss it now. I noticed that it was, a lot of it was filmed in Holloman Air Force Base, which is adjacent to White Sands Missile Range. And the rocket sled thing that they had actually footage from, I've seen that. I've seen that in person. I've been real close to it. And it is located not very far away from where they had the primate facility there at Holloman Air Force Base, where the chimpanzees and other primates that they were sending up and doing experiments on were left to a ripe old age. So they kind of had a place they kind of kept them going there, and that was right down the road from the rocket training thing. So it definitely caught. Of course, I saw this about maybe 15 years ago when it was much more built up. Of course, back then you got a really good view of the mountains in the background and the desert, all that kind of stuff. There at Holloman Air Force Base. Holloman Air Force Base is near Almagardo. I'm pronouncing it wrong. Almagardo, New Mexico, and it is northeast of El Paso and also northeast of Las Cruces, New Mexico. It's in the south, kind of southeast portion of New Mexico. I guess that's all my initial comments. N5BB.
Lost my foot pedal there. Thank you, Bill. No, the background info is always fascinating, and I know that in your job it took you to many very interesting places, many military installations. So yeah, anytime you got that sort of thing, absolutely chime in. I think that just adds to the whole interest to the story. Let's see, Chris, KE0FER. Welcome, Chris. You saw the film. What did you think about the plot from KE5ICX?
Yeah, not much of a plot. It was just a story about technology being developed in the space race. I agree with Bill that it did feel a little bit like a propaganda piece, but I don't say that to disparage the film. I thought the film was okay. I do wonder if there was some funding from the aerospace industry for that film. So, yeah, that's about it. KC or FER.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Short and sweet, nothing wrong with that. Yeah, well, I'll make this brief comment, but they were talking about Top Gun, and there was a gal who was a military pilot, Navy pilot, who actually got into the Navy air program because of that movie. And so, yeah, it's kind of propaganda, but at the same time, it also brings people and changes their careers, too, especially when you're young and highly impressionable. Next up is Brenda, WB50ZL. Brenda, you saw the film. What did you think about the plot from KE5ICX?
This is WB50ZL. I did like this movie, but because it had all the great stock footage of airplanes and because the subject about the, can we go to space? We take it all for granted now. We didn't know if we could even survive Mach 1, or if we didn't know what was out there even. And, it's very risky to experiment with things like that. Just loved all that stock footage, all the airplanes. The plot itself was fairly predictable. Conflict, and the long-suffering wife. I have no idea why she was always there. That was very unrealistic. They would not have let the wife of somebody hang around like that and sit there and knit. That was just flat silly. And she was kind of annoying because she's always so fretful, and that just didn't ring true for me. It was a little hard to tell the characters apart to me. They're all just kind of generic-looking guys, but they're just typical red-blooded American heroes that will go and do daring feats and go into danger and overcome it. So the plot was a little bit thin to me, but that's okay. I still liked all the airplanes and the subject. Back to that, WE50ZL.
All right, very good, Brenda. Next up is Jay, KG5BZW. Jay, you saw the film. What did you think of the plot?
All right, this is... Let me make sure my foot thing is actually engaged here. This is KG5BZW, and what? It wasn't strictly bad. There was just a few things. I know others have commented that it just seems a bit like a propaganda piece, but also I'm trying to figure out if some of the stuff that was added was there just added for drama, they just needed to make up something, or if it was, I almost wondered if it wasn't something that, a little bit of misinformation, just in case they're trying to, others that were, other Russians, they're doing their own thing, trying to get to space and all, and wanted to, get right where we were or something. But I think that one scene is like, oh yeah, just went in the air, which, like, what was that about? It's not, unless, I've never been skydiving, but I know, I think it's pretty common knowledge how skydivers dive these days, because you've seen a lot of people, the footage is out there, and it's like, nobody swims in the air unless they're doing some sort of, I don't know, it's not a overhand stroke, but like, I don't even know what to do. And the spin that they add is just like, oh yeah, you can some. There's just like just enough of truth, and it didn't really make sense. That whole thing just didn't make any sense to me. Let me reset. But then again, I'm looking at it as from the 21st century, looking at this piece, and all that we know now, that's actually a lot more common knowledge than certainly back then. So it kind of bugged me, because I really wanted to remember what was part of the history and what was just the fiction they made up for the film, and knowing just enough, but not enough to prove or disprove some of these things. Just off the top of what I know off the top of my head was really annoying. The swim thing is obviously, especially as portrayed, is not true. But for various definitions of swim and whatnot, maybe it could possibly work. But just basic conservation of momentum and stuff. You bring your arms in, you go spin faster. You put your arms down, they slow spin or whatever. Just, I don't know. That's kind of basic physics here. But anyway, other than that, I'm getting caught up on little technical details of the film. Other than that, I guess it's okay. Others have commented other deficiencies. I don't think I need to become much smarter. I'll hand it back to net control. Get you valve VCW.
All right, thank you, Jay. And I don't disagree with what you said at all. I think it's very interesting, and yeah, the technical details are what make this film. Next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, you saw the film. What'd you think of the plot from KE5ICX?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. I thought the movie was okay. The plot, as everybody's already said, was very, very simplistic. It does seem like probably the military did help pay for this movie, and it was propaganda to help get people interested. Not necessarily a bad thing, but so therefore the writers, I think, were forced to build some kind of story around, the actual facts, and they kept it pretty basic. Not really much of a story there. They kind of tried to show the stress of, any wife that has family members that are doing things that are on the cutting edge or their lives constantly at risk. So I see where they were going with it, but yeah, it was kind of overdone. But they kind of had to do something to make it interesting, and bringing in the different, I forget his official title, but basically the guy in charge of the base. Obviously it had to create some controversy. There were parts of it I enjoyed. It was fun seeing the old footage. It was fun seeing the planes. It was interesting, to some extent about seeing about, what they had to go through to come up with these new mechanisms to try to keep it safe so people could eject safely. But to be honest, partway through, I did kind of start to get bored, just because they spent so much time, and there just really wasn't that exciting. There was, and the dialogue in between the scenes wasn't, fantastic. It was just okay. And then, and of course, there at the end, they made the point of saying that, parts of this were, based on some truth. And, I don't know if they ever did the balloon thing. I meant to look to see if they ever did actually do something like that. I know the ejection thing was real, but, and the sled testing was real. But, this was just okay. Just kind of, it's about like kind of sort of watching a documentary with a little bit of fiction thrown in. Just all in all, it was okay, but parts of it were a little slow, I felt. This is just, it's different, kind of falls into a different category. Back to net, KB9SOK.
Very good. Thank you, Sean. Most appreciated. Next up is Cruz, KI5KWG. Cruz, I know you got something to say about this film. What'd you think? Plot worth it? From KE5I6.
Yeah, KI5KWG. Nice to be back. I like this. The way I wrote it down is the plot is a documentary, so it's real life. And except for the wife part, I mean, she could be real life too. But to answer Brenda's question, she was a helmet specialist. That's why she was always around. So I suppose that's how they met. And I knew a little bit about Kittinger's jump in Project Excelsior. I think that was around 1960, and they were really doing these high altitude balloon tests and doing the jumps. I think Kittinger's jump held the record until fairly recently, 2012, I think. He actually did the jump from that top altitude of just over 100,000 feet, if I recall. I'd have to look it up. But one thing I did look up was Colonel John Stapp, who Tom, you mentioned in your opening, and this really is kind of his story. And he was the head of the program and very safety conscious, and so he's like, this is just too dangerous to risk pilots for, and then the narrator comes in, so he did it himself. I mean, really heroic type stuff. And Kittinger was that way too. He was the director of his department when he did his record-setting jumps. So thought that was pretty cool. Can you tell I liked it? I can't go on without going back to your original plug, Tom. I don't know if you write these things, but that raise your hands if you think there's a problem with the ejection seat. Had me laughing so hard. I absolutely love that comment. No one raised their hand. So, what did else I see? Let me look at my notes real quick. The bottom eject was interesting to me. I got a chance to talk several times with a Russian, retired Russian military pilot, and who knew Yuri Gagarin, interviewed a lot of people about Gagarin's death. And one of the things that had come up during all that, let me reset. One of the things that came out in our discussions was the downward ejection systems that the Russians were using back in those days in the 60s. And this is the first I knew that we had been experimenting with that, was from watching this film. So I was enjoying listening to that and learning about that, and then reading about it after watching the film. Let's see, no, that one I'll save for the JATO I'll save for the special effects. Plot hole, kind of, sort of, for me, wondering why they thought high altitude caused mental breaks. I was wondering if that meant that they weren't yet on pure oxygen when they were out there. high, but that would seem kind of obvious. So I guess that's what I've got on the plot part. Enjoyed it, learned a lot, considered it a documentary because it almost was. And KI5 KWG, back to you, Nat.
Thank you, Cruz. I knew you would have some comments and some interesting sidelines. This is kind of a film that I sense that you would particularly like. Okay, I'm going to go back to Brandon. Wake up, Brandon. I know you didn't see the film, KI5SXE, but I gave you an opportunity to hear some of the comments. I'll reserve mine for the end, but just to throw it out there, what do you think? Is this a film that you would want to see? Do you like 50s, almost science fact film in this case? Does it hold up, or do you think it's a dud? From KE5ICX.
Well, I don't think I should really have any opinions on the movie itself, but listening to everyone talk, I do think I would like the cinematography of it, and to see the landscapes and some of the historical representations of the Air Force bases and military at the time. So I think it would be interesting to look at it from that perspective, and I don't think I would have looked at the movie had it not been for this. So yeah, all around good stuff. Back to net control, Kilo India 5, Sierra X-ray Echo.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Brandon. I'm going to ask if there's any additional check-ins at this point. If you'd like to join us, we are talking about On the Threshold of Space from 1956. That's the movie. If you would like to join us, either to discuss it or add your comments about that particular time in history, by all means, please check in. Please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, and did you see On the Threshold of Space? Please come out. Okay, I think we have our existing quorum here. Okay, well, I get the benefit. If you're net control, you always get to add comments to what everybody else has done. There's not much more I can add. I thought it was an interesting film. I thought that the storyline was a little weak in the sense that we really didn't have anything going on as far as the interpersonal play, particularly, well, really with Pat, Captain Jim. It was a little bit forced, I thought, and kind of silly on the beach and all that, but I don't know. That wasn't the point of the film. I mean, this is a guy's film. You're going to go see it. You're going to watch how they work with the hardware and what they're going to do and accomplish tasks and all of that. And it's very much there. I found the whole thing with the what the heck is it called? Golly, I can't remember the jet. Oh, the rocket sled. And I just remembered what it was called. I thought that was fascinating. That was really cool watching them use that, set it up. It's the real deal, and I'm watching those tests. Was quite amazing. I used to go up to when I was traveling up to Hutchinson, Kansas, and they do have a rocket sled on display there. It's quite fascinating. There's not a lot to them, except they go really, really, really fast. So I can't imagine how anybody would want to strap themselves into it, much less have that piece of metal flying off in front of them and then getting a blast of air hitting them at 1,000 miles per hour. That's just incredible to me that they could do something like that and be willing to take a chance. So I thought that was quite interesting. I also found towards the end when they were doing the high altitude balloons and saying that we're reaching, near outer space, yeah, that stuff happened. and how they would react and act, I think would be quite fascinating. And I don't know how accurate this was or whether it was done for dramatic purposes, but I could see people, in essence, being on the edge of space and thinking it was fascinating. We had, dare I mention his name, William Shatner, emoting over all of that. Of course, he could be acting, doing Shatner acting, but in any case, when I watched that live, when he did something equivalent on his short jaunt into space, he was just totally mesmerized by the whole thing. And I can see that. Why would you not? And if that's the way you're going to go, I thought that was quite a poetic justice, and they brought it out and made comments of it. Now that gets into the characterization, I suppose, but I thought it really made the film, and it ended in a good way in that regard. It really kind of put the mystique of space and put the mystique of what the Air Force does in this case, because they were literally on the bleeding edge of all this. I think it might have even played a little better if they simply made it a documentary rather than something that, than a dramatic production, because actually the dramatic parts that were created, the fictional characters, and that actually, I think, kind of detracted from the film a little bit. The biographical nature of it's fine, no problem there, but I thought some of it was kind of manufactured in order to fill out the hour and 20 minutes this film. I think that's what it was. But overall, I thought it went well, and I watched it all to the end, and I was totally mesmerized. I thought it was quite fascinating, and the real deal, real footage through the most part. I thought that was quite interesting. All right, let's go to the next part of this, which is characterization. This should be interesting, trying to determine what's real, what's not, who's good, who's not, as well as anything you want to add to the authenticity of these characters. So let me check. Bill is still there, I think. Bill, are you still awake, and do you want to comment on characterization? If you're asleep, don't respond. If you're awake, you can respond if you want to, or not. But W5BLT, what do you think of characterization from KE5ICX? Okay, I think he did exactly what we thought. He's sleeping in his chair right now, and that's okay. So let's go up to Bill, N5BB. Bill, what do you think of characterization on this movie, which is On the Threshold of Space from 1956, from KE5ICX?
Okay, thank you, Tom. This is N5BB. By the way, I didn't say earlier, in addition to having visited Holloman Air Force Base and seen the rocket sled, I also visited a number of times Eglin Air Force Base in the Florida Panhandle, and which is there near the base is where they were doing the actual ejection seat tests in the air. So the movie didn't make this obvious, but they were actually going back and forth between some scenes that were actually filmed out there and off the Eglin Air Force Base in the Florida Panhandle and Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico, which are quite different environments. There was another comment I was going to make about locations or technical things, and I have completely forgot what that was. Okay, so characterization. Well, what can you say? This had some plot points which you see in many of these other similar movies back from especially the 50s and 60s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and especially kind of science fiction related movies. You have the character that's brave and wants to push the envelope, and you have his direct in command who says, "No, we're not going to do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. I will demote you for doing that. Don't do it." And then you have the love interest that is saying, "Don't leave me. Don't die in space," or whatever. And I guess it was entertaining, but it was formulaic. Of course, this is way back in the 50s, so this may have defined the formula for later movies. The characters were defined reasonably well. In other words, you definitely saw the main protagonist and his girlfriend he married, and their relationship and everything were characterized pretty well, I think, for the 50s, for the kind of things they would show then. You may have noticed the bedroom shot had separate beds required by the movie code. I thought it was interesting that when she came out there to watch him go up and everything, she was wearing a dress. You know, women could wear dungarees then. You'd think when they're out there in the desert, and she put a little stool out, unfolded her stool and sat down on it, you'd think she wouldn't be wearing a fluffy dress like that, but whatever. She was probably wearing high heels too, I didn't notice, but that's just what they did back then in movies. Which didn't seem too realistic to me. The rest of it seemed, reasonably realistic. It was very believable, and the characters had their little interactions and everything, and that was okay. And I didn't find any of that really objectionable. There weren't a lot of characters. There was the Major, who, unfortunately, we now find out died before the end of the movie, and they were filming it. He had a sudden heart attack. But you had the Major, and then you had the protagonist that worked for him, and then you had that scientist guy, and then a few other miscellaneous characters that were just kind of the B characters in the background that you saw in more than one scene, and the girlfriend turned wife. So there weren't a lot of characters and too much other backstory other than the protagonist and his wife. But I think it was enjoyable for a simple movie like this. I agree with you. They were kind of stretching it out, I thought, and because they didn't have a lot of other material. They didn't have a lot of other material, either story material or filmed scenes, and so they stretched out about as far as they could. That's all I got. N5BB.
Very good. Thank you, Bill. Next up is Chris, K0FER. Chris, what'd you think of characterizations with On the Threshold of Space from KE5ICX?
Characterizations weren't bad. They were just kind of stock, except for the actress. She was terrible. I really, really did not like her. They had that big dramatic shot of her when the light in the bed, in her separate bed, as Bill pointed out. The light goes out and she's worried. But I just saw her to be milquetoast, and looks like she's married a guy who's going to put everything but her above her. But, you know, it's the 50s sometimes. Easier as you are.
Okay, thank you, Chris. I'm sensing a pattern building here. WB50ZL, Brenda, what did you think of characterization in this film from KE5ICX?
This is WB50ZL. Thought it was pretty formulaic. That woman is just like every other woman in these movies, and you know, you got the heroes. Oh no, I have to do it my way because I'm a big hero. Or people who just don't think they need to follow orders. So, you know, it was not a great movie, but it was okay. But the characterization is not the big part. None of the actors were memorable to me, and yeah, that just almost got in the way of seeing all the airplanes and hearing the story. Well, that's really all I have on characterization, so I'll send it back, WB50ZL.
Okay, well, it's beginning to shape up that everybody hated poor Pat. Boy, I tell you something. And she got married, too. That's so sad. Okay, next up is Jay, KG5BZW. Jay, what did you think of characterization? And was Pat that terrible, the wife and helmet maker from KE5ICX?
Well, this is KG5BZW. Yeah, she was sort of my toy girl. That's basically all. Maybe a woman that, you know, fulfill the formula for a successful movie, and I mean, not to, they need a romantic interest, I should say, woman. I don't want to get away from, you know, obviously, anyways, that's kind of that point. I did look. Again, this movie is a fact of fiction, and that obviously the character is the major, and you know, his counter, his antagonist, which wasn't, I'm sure there's a better term, antagonist, but kind of a counterpoint. Led of several people, obviously, and the test themselves, that's one of the weird things about this movie. It's such a blend of fact and fiction. The test, a number of the things that this movie drew inspiration from were the test by a Colonel John Paul Stapp, that'd be STAPP, did, and his, except for his tests, they were not about injections or anything like that. They were about deceleration, which is related to ejection. So it's like, it's definitely related. The thing is, like the eyeballs of the other guy issue, that was experienced by Stapp himself, and basically I think reading up on what his experience was is probably just it's more informative. I don't know how much that kind of stuff was available to the public at the time, of course, but Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So you got the blend of characters from various, fields of testing here, and the various tests themselves being blended. That's a little bit more about kind of more plot than character, but the fact that I'm just pointing out that all these things are being blended together to create these characters in this movie. Let me read that. There's not much else going on because of just how these characters are made to cover multiple tests and multiple things. So it's hard to say. It's like I almost feel it just feels almost disingenuous, It's just because sure. I guess this goes back to the propaganda point instead of the science fact point. It was made to serve a purpose for maybe for Air Force or whatever promotion instead of showing the actual stories, which is really a little bit more interesting. But they probably didn't want to go too much into detail at that time. All that, but I think I've got what I want to say on that. So back to next roll. Take your vote.
All right, thank you, Jay. Got you down. Next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, what you think of the characters and the acting here on the Threshold of Space from KE5ICX?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, I think it's been kind of covered. There was nothing really special here in the acting, I don't think. And I think a lot of it, everybody's giving the wife a hard time. I do think it was overplayed. The dramatic part of it just didn't seem natural. But a lot of that, I think, was the writing, and I think Bill said it, that, this is how a lot of women were portrayed back in the movies in that time. They had her knitting while she was waiting on what he was doing up there, making him a something. It's just kind of, how they portrayed, unfortunately, women a lot in these older movies. Obviously she must have been some kind of scientist if she was working on the helmet, I would guess. And it's odd that, they had her working on the helmet kind of like out in the front lobby area, it looked like, and there was no other people. So it was a little strange, but I guess they had to have an excuse for her to be close in the action, I guess. And I guess because she worked on helmet is why she could be there at all the testing, so she can see how things went. I do think maybe she was maybe the one thing that seemed off as far as the characters. Our main doctor, he was okay, but I think that the acting was just kind of I wasn't blown away by it. But once again, this movie seemed like it was more about really just the telling a little bit of history and just seeing the real scenes and doing a little bit of explaining what was going on at the time. I would imagine this would have been probably been pretty neat to see back in the day when it came out, because it wouldn't be anything like it at that time. So I'm guessing most people weren't really focused so much on the acting or even the story for that sake. They just really wanted to see, the science side of it or what was going on. Not a lot of depth here as far as characters. None of them were super deep. The guy in charge, the other doctor, I doubt that they would have, he's very safety conscious and yada, 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 but I doubt that that medical would have ever let him do the sled test, having issues with his eyes. I know he said he went and saw a specialist, but that, the the military is pretty touchy about that kind of stuff. If you have medical conditions, not letting you do stuff. So yeah, I'd be surprised by that. But once again, this movie I thought was okay. It was neat to see. Probably something I want to watch again. But all in all, it was something different and kind of interesting. So back to Nat, KB9, that's okay.
Very good, thank you, Sean. And yeah, I think, who is it? The most feared man in the Air Force is the flight surgeon, who can ground you with just a capricious hand, wave of a hand. So you got that. KI5KWG Cruz, your thoughts on characterization for On the Threshold of Space from 1956 from KE5ICX.
KI5KWG. Listening to everybody saying the same things that I was thinking through all this, but I noticed that we're focusing on Virginia Leaf, and I think is how it's pronounced. I didn't know any of these actors except for Martin Milner, and I didn't actually recognize him. And y'all mentioned at the beginning, 1 out of 12, Pete Malloy. But I didn't recognize him and didn't realize he was playing that Glenn character until this net started. So my comment, going back to the wife, since everybody's talked about her, a friend posted on Facebook something about the Johnny Depp trial lawyer, Camille Vasquez, and so I read this long article about her, and they were asking comments, and I wrote, that article went an awful long way to avoid stating the obvious, which is she's pretty. That's exactly what I think we're doing here. That was her point. That was her job in the film. They got her in a swimsuit on the beach. That was her job. They got her in a pretty dress in the desert. That was her job, and I thought she did it well. But I guess the rest of the actors, they nothing's really stood out, but they told the story well enough, and so I don't really have any complaints about anybody. That's all I've got on characterization. So, and I'll be short on the third section. This is KI5KWG, back to Nat.
Okay, very good, Cruz. Well, let's see here. Let's go check on Brandon, KI5SXE. Brandon, how are you doing over there? Are you going to rush out? And well, you don't have to find it in the bargain bin, but you certainly can watch it on YouTube. Is this top on your list with this impressive cast? I have to ask. I think keep you in the conversation here. Otherwise, we'd be ignoring you, which wouldn't be any fun. So go ahead. Anything you want to say from KE5ICX?
I got nothing. Thank you, but appreciate it. Still just hanging in there. KI5SXE, back to you.
All right. Well, I give you kudos for the fact that you're still there, and we're talking about a movie that you've never heard of or seen before, and you're still there. That's excellent on your part. My thoughts on the film and the characterization. Well, we can beat up poor Pat and all of this. And the crazy thing about it is, at the very beginning of the film, they just show her working on the helmets and that, and she's obviously that's where she and Jim met. She gave him probably a helmet with his name on the front of it or something. I don't know, and they fell in love because he's the pilot, and and she's the brilliant scientist-y type person, and then they blow it all up with her knitting, and the only thing they didn't have her do was get coffee, and it's a requirement that any woman in any 1950s movie has to vacuum and get coffee for her man, but that didn't happen. The other thing that was hilarious is, and it's a throwback to the old I Love Lucy series, which is the twin beds. And immediately that's what I thought of, was Lucy and Ricky. How the heck are you going to have any kids when you got twin beds? But who knows? I guess I'll say this, it's late night. I guess there's always the kitchen. So, let's see here. A couple of people. Warren Stevens, I was trying to remember, I'd seen him in, he was in Star Trek. He played, I forget what the name of the episode was now. I'm getting old. I can't remember the stuff like I used to. But he was the guy that turned everybody into those little cubes, those little dodecahedron things, and then wanted to go to the Andromeda Galaxy with his crew of weirdos. That was Warren Stevens, who played Captain Mike Bentley in this thing. And then you got Martin Milner, who, of course, was in One Atom 12. He played Malloy. And I guess, and I wrote this down, is he made a career out of that haircut. Everything he was ever in, he had that haircut. So military job, military role, just bring him in, Mr. One Atom 12 himself. Which, by the way, is a nickname I gave one of my doctors. Let's see, what else do I want to say here? Dan Ogle, Major General Dan Ogle. He's the real deal. He's the real guy. And when you look him up, he has his own wiki page because he's that important. Major General Dan Ogle. He was the 3rd Surgeon General of the United States Air Force, so he had that role. It was a bit odd, I have to admit, watching the cameras move back and forth. There was a close-in headshot, and then there was a, what do they call it, upper body shot, and they went back and forth, and he'd be looking at the camera, and then he'd be looking away from the camera. Now, today, that is kind of common. That is something that they do, and I hate it. I hate it. I think it looks so stupid, but it is something they do in documentaries and that today, and I guess they had some sensibility of it in this. I am not a fan of that, and we do, at my work, do a lot of video stuff, and we do the cameras and that, and we absolutely do not do that. So it's just a personal thing, I guess. I find it distracting. So just a minor thing. But I guess that's under the technical stuff anyway. Let's see, what else can I... Good old Jim, he was fine. He just wanted to be the guy. And I think he, as a character, Guy Madison did a nice job with him as a character, and he held the movie together, even though the actual, scripting, personal feeling stuff just didn't really wash very well. The characters were fine. I had no problems with them, but they spent a lot of, police procedural stuff talking about how they could fix the problem and that, which is fine if it's a documentary, but it's not a documentary. It's a dramatic show with documentary factual elements to it that with documentary footage. So I don't know. I think it could have been a little stronger. Maybe these characters would have had more to work with had they had a better script. I don't know. Some of them barely are actors. So I'll give it a wash. I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think it was great in that regard. I do think that the subject matter was excellent and a great idea, and I'm sure that it played well to audiences back then. And just like anything today, talking about SpaceX. Just as an aside, I did see the first episode of the 3rd season for All Mankind, and I have to admit, I hated it. Mainly because it was self-aware and it kind of acts in this kind of clunky dialogue that we watched in this movie. Why? I don't know. I don't understand why it's taken this right turn or down bubble thing that it just doesn't ring true. The characters are astronauts and they're not playing it right. And it really did remind me of this film. When I was watching her, this film reminded me of that episode which I watched yesterday. Just thought it was kind of silly. So it may be a technique that just doesn't quite work. I don't know. Or it's just a bad script. Who knows? All right, here we go. We're going to go ahead and head into the final stretch here. We'll talk about anything you want to talk about. You can talk about the technical aspects of the film, maybe how it was the filming that they did, the angles, that sort of thing. Music, there was some. Anything you may have missed. Special effects were kind of interesting in some of the things they did. So this is where we're going to go. We'll talk about that stuff on our final round. We will start with, I think Bill is out. I'll ask for him. W5BLT, Bill, are you there or are you gone? Please come out. Yeah, I think he fell asleep. He's still showing on Echolink, but I'm pretty sure he has checked out for the evening. So we'll go to the other Bill, N5BB. Bill, your final comments, anything you want from KE5ICX.
Well, yes, Tom, this is N5BB. Earlier this evening, you mentioned, I can't remember the context, but Top Gun and maybe the recent Top Gun movie. Well, it so happens that, putting a little reality in this, on Wednesday of this week, on The Takeaway, which is a public radio show from WNYC, which does play midday here on KERA FM here in Dallas, 90.1 FM. But you can see the recorded podcasts by going to The Takeaway, doing a search for The Takeaway, and the interview was with Becky Calder. That's Becky Calder, Calder. She was the first female pilot that became Top Gun. She was the real thing. She really did it. So I found it a very interesting interview, and it was very real. So go look for that. A real-life Top Gun Maverick. This is the June 8th issue of The Takeaway, and you can listen to it on the web. And I think that's all I got in 5BB.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. That's exactly what I was referring to. I had gone to lunch, and I was listening to that broadcast on KERA, and she was on, and they were interviewing her. So, yeah, it's well worth listening to. She's quite fascinating about her history in the Air Force, how she got there through very strange means, and her husband was also a pilot, also had gone to Top Gun school as well, and she spoke of her time. I thought it was quite interesting. But I don't want to digress and talk a lot about it, but just suffice to say, if you have time and you're interested in that sort of thing, which I think we are, listen to the interview. She's quite an interesting, fascinating story to tell. All right, next up is Chris, K0FER. Chris, you got any final comments for tonight's film? Special effects, anything you want. Go ahead, from KE5ICX.
Well, I'm going to talk about the music a bit. During the opening credits, there was this, full orchestra and a lot of hurried, kind of frenetic music that I thought was kind of setting the stage for a much more tense movie than what I experienced. I know that Hollywood and, the magic of these composers who can just churn stuff out and get it on on tape so quickly never ceases to amaze me. But listen to it, it's like, wow, that's actually that's pretty tight. And the composer, a guy named Lynn Murray, I'm not familiar with any of his other works, but just looking through his IMDb credits, he's done a ton of TV work for Alfred Hitchcock Hour and lots of famous shows, Dragnet, things like that. But yeah, the music was clean, I think would probably be the best way to describe it. It's not particularly memorable, but it's really tightly done. KZRFB, thank you.
All right, thank you, Chris. I'm going to put an asterisk there because you brought up an interesting point, but I'm going to save my comments for the end. Next is WB50ZL. Brenda, anything you would like to talk about? Special effects, music, something we missed on the previous two rounds, whatever you want from KE5ICX. Oh, I know what happened to her. She fell asleep. We'll try and come back to her later. Let's go to Jay, KG5BZW. Your final comments on the threshold of space from KE5ICX.
This is KG5BZW. On Link this time. What else to say? I mean, there were definitely some special effects taken on the I'm trying to remember what was actually done with respect to those gondolas. It's just, there's something a little bit weird about that, but maybe I'm just not remembering. Of course, there's the swimming thing I already mentioned, but whatever. The windshield test, the little prop for that was pretty obviously a prop. But, they had good real footage mixed in, so, or recreations apparently. But, I don't know what else to say there. I don't have anything else. Guess you might be stoked back now.
All right, thank you, Jay. And I just woke up Brenda. She is now awake, and she has something to say about, I don't know, whatever she wants to talk about. WB50ZL from KE5ICX. Your final comments on our film this evening.
This is WB50ZL. I almost picked up my mouse to talk into it. That might work. Final thoughts. I don't have a whole lot more to say. This is the kind of movie you can just talk on about because there's just not that much there. That was it. The music was magnificent. Well, okay, it was loud and fast. I thought the subject was good. I wish they'd do more movies like this because of its historical component. And I just wish they'd tell that woman to go home, go knit at home, or find a hobby or something. know, seriously, I just don't really have anything more to say, so I'm going to sign off now. This is WB50ZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. You can go to bed now. You are dismissed. Let's see, next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, your final thoughts on the film, special or something you forgot. Please go ahead.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yeah, not a lot to really add. You know, obviously they use some stock footage from the real thing. So obviously that was legit. So the effects were very good in that case. The recreations on the stage, I suppose, were decent. You know, I don't really have any complaints on this one when it comes to effects because obviously they used a lot of real footage, and you know, I think they did a good job mimicking. But the props when they had the up close of the different the chairs and the capsule thing. You know, to be honest, I don't really remember a lot about the music. So obviously it was okay because it didn't bother me. Yeah, not a lot to add about this film. Back to that, KB9SOK.
All right, thank you, Sean. You know, I'll say this, but one of the things that I think is interesting is that we've watched so many lackluster films, we'll call them, bad films in other cases, films that have gone off the rails, things that didn't quite work right and then exploded and blew shrapnel everywhere. We have lots of things we can say about those films and how they kind of self-destructed. This one didn't do that. It just kind of hung together. Maybe not the best thing in the world, but certainly not the worst. And so we're having trouble trying to analyze the film beyond its basic weaknesses. But for a film, it wasn't all that bad. Okay. Next up is Cruz, KF5KWG. Your final comments. What do you think from KE5ICX?
KI5KWG. Don't have much on this one, thankfully. I will say I have more energy than the rest of y'all because I work a 12 to 2200 shift. So I barely make it home by the time this starts. And, okay, so my two things I have on here. My absolute favorite part was a eureka moment. Back when we reviewed Batman, the original, not that long ago, I mentioned that I've always tried to find the sound, a source for the startup of the Batmobile, and I'm talking about that guttural roar when it shows the flame coming out of the jet engine. It was in this film, and it was the JATO, the jet assist takeoff rocket motors that they use on the back of the sled. And when that happened, I was like, I have found it. I have finally found the source of the Batmobile startup. So it's a JATO. Okay, the other comment I had, and this goes into the other category, I mentioned Kettinger, who was the one that did the long-standing record balloon jump and free fall. I think actually his free fall record still stands from the same jump, over 100,000 feet. Before he jumped, when he opened up the gondola, his glove failed on one of his hands. So he's basically got his hand exposed to a near vacuum, almost the space, vacuum of space, and it's for several minutes. Did he radio the ground and say he had a suit problem? Would the hero in this movie have done that? And the answer was no to both. And he kept his mouth shut and jumped. And he had problems with the hand for a while, but it all healed up. But he wanted to go through with the jump, and that is the kind of people who we were dealing with in this film. And there were real live versions of them. I thought that was kind of a cool part of that story. All right, Tom, this is KI5KWG, back to KE5ICKX.
Cruise. And you know what? I heard that too, and I thought of the Batmobile, and for some reason it went out of my head. But yeah, that was something that you had mentioned before, and not to repeat the same thing, but yeah, I always wondered about that too. And I heard it, and I went, oh, it sounds like the Batmobile. But of course, we know that it's probably the real deal. So, very cool, and I'm glad you brought that up. Let's see, there was mention about the soundtrack, and films have themes, and a good composer, or maybe the difference between a good composer and a great composer, is the great composer can pull out the emotional stops and turn the film into something even better, or sometimes even better than the film deserves when the music is particularly good. An example of that might be Conan the Barbarian. The score to that film is far superior to the movie itself. Another one that's kind of unusual is called Sliver. It's a terrible movie, and it's got a very good soundtrack to it. Those things really do play into it and help. This one had a serviceable soundtrack, but it really didn't rise above anything outside of a nicely played. I didn't actually feel all that engaged by the music. I think you could have done it without any music whatsoever and just used the sound effects that were in the film itself, and it would have had basically the same response to what was going on. The movie was fine. The music did not manipulate the story in any way, which in some cases is fine, but in many cases is why you hire the composer in the first place is to amp up the action. When you fail to do that, then to me, the music is part of the characterization. As an aside, when you watch a film, you know that you're getting exposition from the actors themselves. But what are they thinking? We don't always know. They have to emote physically on stage. Well, music also helps you along in that regard. If you get a minor chord and there's conversation and the reaction of one of the actors is with a minor chord and a puzzlement on their face, we know something went horribly wrong in that conversation, and it sticks out like a sore thumb, and that helps us to concentrate and guide us through whatever's happening. The music was fine, but it did not really rise above just basically elevator music to a certain extent. Nicely played elevator music, but elevator music nonetheless. All right, well, I think that's all I've got for this evening. Does anybody have any other final comments they want to make? Just come with your call.
WB50ZL.
N5SQA.
All right, well, we've got Brenda, and we got our late our arrival, N5SQA. That would be Ron. So we'll start with Brenda. Ladies first. Go ahead.
Yeah, WB50ZL. I just suddenly took a yen to roam around the internet and looked up Project Manhigh, which is what they call this the project. The gondola that Joe Kittinger actually went up in is on display at the Wright Pat Museum. I had actually had no idea that they had preserved it, so you can look that up too, Project Manhigh. So it's pretty interesting. There are several books written about this. One's called Touching Space, the Project Manhigh, the story of Project Manhigh, and it was definitely groundbreaking work. All right, back to that, WB50ZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. And lastly, Ron, N5SQA, what do you have for us this evening? Go ahead.
Good evening, Tom. Got here very late as usual. I noticed that a lot of times you guys talk about movies with bad acting. I can guarantee you some bad acting because I'm doing it in a Dallas Theater Center production in early July called The Odyssey. Spent 4 hours in rehearsals a day. I have rehearsals 3 to 5 days a week. It's grueling. It's weird. It's not my thing, but it's, at the end of the day, fun. At any rate, if you want to see some bad acting, look up Dallas Theater Center, The Odyssey. Performances are on July 8, 9, and 10. They're free. Getting tickets is a little weird. I can help you with that. If you really need help, N5SQA at ARRL.net. Back to net, N5SQA.
Well, Ron, you know what? This might be the perfect net or the perfectly wrong net to do this on because, you know, we may come as a group and see you and then critique your play. So, but I applaud you. I used to do a lot of theater back in Detroit. I didn't do any when I came to Dallas, but I did a lot of theater back in Detroit. Had a lot of fun doing it. It was very entertaining, and you met a lot of interesting people. A lot like ham radio, except that they're on stage, and you've got to be able to understand them and hear them on stage. So, in any case, very good. Glad to hear at the Odyssey at the Dallas Theater Center. We'll look you up. I put in a little asterisk by this as a final comment, and see about it. Should be interesting. All right, well, let's see here. Let me tell you, I have on Facebook upcoming Afterglow movie list, but something weird has happened to it. I can no longer edit it. It just stopped editing. I don't know if it was something wrong with Facebook itself, or somebody locked us out, or what, but I'll see what I can do. But we do have scheduled, and it is posted, the Gamma People, also from 1954. That'll be next week's movie. And then following that, Field Day weekend, which is 6/25, that's a Saturday, we will be watching in person, bring popcorn, Battlefield Earth, considered by the Dallas Amateur Radio Club and their admirers the worst science fiction movie ever made. So we'll be watching that. It's from 2000. There'll be no actual net that evening. However, the following July 2nd, we'll be talking about Battlefield Earth as a discussion. So I'll see what I can do about finding links for folks that won't be at Field Day to see it in person so that you too can participate. And with that, I'm going to say 7-3 to everybody. Had a good conversation, enjoyed it. This is a fun net. I think it's my favorite of all the ones that we do. There's more work than in the others, but this is always fun. So 7-3 everybody. Have a good evening. Have a good tomorrow. Have a good week. This is KE5ICX. Good night.
Hey, Tom. Thanks for bringing up Field Day. This is Inside BB.
W5FC.
It so happens I am TechNet net control on Field Day evening. So I will be running TechNet from the Irving Amateur Radio Club Field Day site over at T.W. Richardson Park in North Irving. We're going to be using my call sign, N5BB, for the Irving Club. But I will be running TechNet there from the Field Day site at 7 p.m. on Field Day evening. So come by TechNet, say hi, and then after the Irving Club is not going to stay late. So probably somewhere between 8 and 9, I will close up and I will move over to the Dallas Club's location so I can view the movie. Thank you. Inside BB Clear.
who are interested, Lost in Space just came on, first season episode. I believe it's called War of the Robots. And you can see Robbie the Robot and B9 from Lost in Space, Robbie the Robot from Forbidden Planet. No, they are not the same robot, but they were both designed by Robert Kinoshita, who lived to be 99 years old and did a lot of work on both programs. So if you're into that sort of thing, this is a good episode to watch if you can stay awake. It just began. See y'all later. KE5ICX, clear.
Okay, Tom, the first half of your transmission was covered up by somebody else. It was a perfect double. Nobody won. Inside BB clear.
Oops. Does anybody want to go ahead and elaborate since we've canceled each other out? Go ahead.
Tom, this is KI5KWG Cruise. That was me doubling with you. I heard most of yours, I think, and probably going to watch it. I was asking, what was that first film? The what people?
It's called The Gamma People, Gamma. I know nothing about it except that it, too, was released in 1954.
Copy, thanks. You wanted to make sure I had my homework. This is KI5KWG. I'm clear.
All right, cool deal. Well, I guess I got through on the Lost in Space. Check out It is War of the Robots. Boy, I can still remember titles to old Lost in Space episodes. With Robbie the Robot and B9, the robot from Lost in Space, created by the same guy, Robert Kinoshita. All right, see y'all later. This is KE5ICX, clear.
GeekNet every fourth Monday at 7 p.m. W5FC.